Yes, I'm down here at the safety hub. Have a look at this gear if you don't mind. Have a look at this picture here. I'm next to the great man, Johnny Platten. Plats, how are you?
I'm good, Phil. Yourself?
Mate, what's missing, mate? What's missing?
Eh?
What's missing?
Eh? What's missing? The hair. Yeah, that's it. But give me a couple more years, mate. It'll be just like you, so it'll be right.
Mate, business pretty good?
Business is good, yeah, it's been great.
All right, mate, let's talk about footy, mate. Brownlow medal, Magarey medal, all Australian, best and fairest Hawthorn, best and fairest at Central.
We haven't got all day. Phil.
Is there anything you missed out on?
No, I'm happy for what I've got. Yeah. I don't want to be too greedy, do I?
Wait, you didn't miss
like
out?
a Norman Smith, Norman Smith.
I didn't get a Norm Smith.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But got pretty close.
All team orientated stuff, though. I mean, the best and fairest are all nice at the end. I mean, we've just gone past the Crows' 25-year reunion. And of course, the Hawthorn game gets dragged up, and finally you had to lose one to make us look good. That period that you're going through now, does it bring the memories back when you've got to talk about it more?
Oh, it does now. Yeah, certainly. They've been enormous the last, probably 5 or 6 years, winning the 2008 premiership, and I suppose in between that to now, they won, back to back now, and this year they're going pretty well as well. So it brings back, enormous memories of where we were back in the 80s and 90s.
Mate, you're a passionate South Australian, still assistant coach out there with Central Districts, and we'll get onto them in a minute. When you sit and watch the Crows play Hawthorn, is it a bit of a tug, or is it, no, Hawthorn's my team?
Oh no, Hawthorn's my team. Yeah, It's always going to be Hawthorn. So it's born and bred through Hawthorn, but just have got great memories there, premierships and great mates there as well. So yeah, Hawthorn, man.
All right, there was an article that just came out recently by Brownie, who's just retired from Queensland, of course, with Brisbane, and he's saying that he doesn't think the Crows are doing enough to protect a Dangerfield or a Eddie Betts. Now, you had some big blokes around you at the time, mate, a Dermy, a Dimmer. Do the Crows have anyone like that?
No.
No. And could you get away with it now, though? Could you get away with it?
Yeah, I don't think you can get away with what they did, whatever, 20 years ago. It's certainly a different game, and there's a lot more cameras, and there's lots of things happening. So, but no, it's been cleaned up quite a bit. But at the same time, you don't want to see blokes get whacked behind play either. So, but yeah, it's just been cleaned up. Dermott and Dipper and Langford and all these blokes are pretty good to me back, 20, 30 years ago.
Mate, did you get whacked a fair bit? Did you ever whack anyone back, or did you just take them past the big boys?
Mate, I'm a lover.
Oh, you're not a fighter?
No.
I will check with your wife about that, mate.
I'm only...
Mate, if you had one of these hard hats, mate, you would have been all right.
Come in very handy.
Would have been handy. The size for you, though, speed was a great thing for you. You see the speed of the game now.
Yeah.
How would have you enjoyed playing today's footy?
I think, I would have loved it. I think the only probably hardest part for me would be to come off the ground, because I would never want to come off. So, but that's the way they play it now. I suppose playing it now, training for the way that you play. That's what happens in footy now. So, I think I'll still be an okay player playing back in those days.
I think you're pretty modest, mate. You're coaching with Central, so you get a chance to see the rotations, the interchange bench, and as you said, when you played, you stayed on and played. Is it a bit out of control? I mean, we see a guy kick a goal and then 10 seconds after he's kicked it, 20 seconds into the game, he's on the interchange bench.
Yeah, look, it's all about timing as well. I think, and when we do it at Central as well, it's more of, because there's 3 or 4 or 5 different blokes coming through the rotations. It's got to be all pretty much timed. I know it's hard, but you try and get around a time to get everybody involved in the game. It just really has to be all timed and properly done. I know that at times there at Central's, our first rotation is within the first minute. That's because of the timing of the quarter, so that everybody gets a fair run. It's hard to explain.
No. I mean, you look at it, and the fitness people have so much say in it now that you're starting to fatigue. He needs to get out now because he'll recover quicker, so we can get him back out there. There are all those factors. The science of the game changed astronomically since you played.
Yeah, the fitness side of things. Even though we were still pretty fit while we were playing, but the science behind it all. It's how far you travel, the pace of it, impact of collisions and all that sort of stuff has certainly come into it now. But it's getting pretty smart, and I'm not really sure if I went really well, if it's pretty smart this day and age.
Yeah. All right. The other one that's got talked about the last couple of weeks is the skills of players. Now they're saying a lot of players in your era, good going left, good going right, doesn't quite seem to be there through this era. There's other things that are, obviously speed and athleticism. With the Central's boys or the games you've watched, do you think some of the skill has dropped away?
More on the passing, because the passing is trying to keep possession of the ball. And for us to keep possession of the ball, it's a lot of short passing as well. And to try and hit our target 20 or 30 metres away on 50 or 60 times a game, it does put a lot of pressure on the guys doing it. Probably 25 years ago, it was more long kick to the centre forwards, to Burtons, the Dunstals and these types of plays, where now it's keep possession of the ball, change direction, keep in line, and where now the game's up to over 400 possessions a game. Probably back when I was playing, it was only 250, 300 possessions a game.
There is more handball now than kicking, isn't
Yeah,
there?
there is. Yeah, and that's to draw players and to get blokes out of position as well. And it's all about keeping possession of the ball as well.
Mate, you're fortunate. You've seen the game evolve and you've been involved in the coaching side of it. A lot of people go, we liked it back the other way when it was open. There was the high flying mark. Now it's almost like rugby scrum type play until someone gets free. Then it's kick it to grass because there's no one to kick it to. How do you find that?
Oh, look, probably being part with Centrals, I can understand where some of the coaches are coming from. Yeah, they talk about press up, the forwards press up to the half back line, and that's just all part of the way that the game's going. We talk about putting pressure on other sides. We put pressure on them to miss goals. So that's all part and parcel now. It's all become a bit of a basketball now, as you would know. You've heard of the press, and you come down, you press them up. So that's where footy's going. It's more about putting a lot of pressure on the opposition team so that they can make mistakes. You get from their mistakes, you turn it back over to our side of the ground, and hopefully you kick goals.
Oh, it used to be man on man. You pretty much were accountable then because if your man was beating, it was obvious. Now you've talked about it. There's the zones, there's the press forward, there's the retreat. How do you find the zones?
Oh, I suppose you've got to have them because there's a press what comes up, and you've got to have a bit of a zone, and it really makes the football ground much smaller, especially if it's in the opposition forward line, and you bring the press down, and it's all about trying to keep in your zones, and if you're not in your zone, it'll be a man-on-man press. So yeah, mate, it's so difficult to understand, but I know that the way that we explain it probably back at Centrals is a little bit easier.
All right. The game has changed, things have evolved, but some things stay the same. And there's always the young player that admires the player, that's who he models his game on. For you as a youngster growing up, who was the player you wanted to be like?
Oh, I was a big fan of Tony Castley, who came from WA, and he was our captain at Centrals, 40 years ago. And I admired him because I was a Central supporter, and I watched him. He was my favourite player. But I suppose in the VFL, I was a Carlton supporter. And the bloke that I used to admire was Alex Jeselenko, even though he wasn't a midfielder. I know he was a centre forward type of bloke and took some big marks. But I had his number 25 on my back, and going down, having a kick at the back of my place in Elizabeth there, and going up, taking these big marks, saying Alex Jeselenko, and so that were good days. But I suppose growing up, you moving to Hawthorn, so many guys involved. Then Lee Matthews had, was part of that as well. So probably the last 3 or 4 years, I got to know Hawthorn quite a bit, and Matthews was one. Colin Robinson was another player who was a quick on-baller for Hawthorn as well, who I watched quite a bit. And just before I got there also, Richard Loveridge, who I actually played as a rover with, so they were good.
Mate, you played with some great players. What about Peter Knights? I mean, high flyer. A lot of talk about Modra at the moment because they're talking about, the great forwards of the Crows, and he was the greatest. Yeah. How was Knights as a high flyer?
Knights was good. I probably only saw last probably 2 or 3 years of Knights because that's when I was getting asked to come over and play with Hawthorn. So. But besides then, you always saw the replays. The winners on a Sunday night, and he was just a classy player. And he could play centre half forward or centre half back or full forward, and also play on ball as well. So he was that type of player who could play anywhere. He was a James Hird or a Peter Motley type of player. So, and then he retired at the end of '85, and I went to Hawthorn '86. But then he coached me back in the early 90s. So he's a great man. He's just the way that he goes about his footy and his life in general. He's just a fantastic bloke to know. All
right, Tony Modra, they say, is the greatest for the Crows, of course. You played with one of the greatest with Dunstall.
Yeah.
Could you draw a comparison? I mean, different style of full forward, but can you draw any comparisons?
Well, for one thing, Dunstall was a champion player because I made him a champion player.
Oh, so, well, we accept Modra didn't have you.
Yeah,
fair call.
We'll get that sorted out first. So. But Dunstall, he was very strong and very smart, and one-on-one he was very, very strong. Over the 20 metres, he was very quick as well. But after that 20 metres, he was shot. He was gone. So he had to take that mark within 20 metres. Mod's, moving, running type forward as well, can jump and mark. Jason was probably 20 metre sprint, take a mark, very strong, one-on-one, very strong. Mods was good up in the air and also running probably 30 or 40 metres to go mark the ball as well. So bit of an era change for both of them. I think Jason was that stay-at-home full forward, where Modra was out leading and taking big marks. So, but two very, very good players.
Is it extended now past Modra again? The full forwards are expected to do more now?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, there's no full
Forward,
is there?
is it?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. You know, as we talked about before, the press, you know, our press now, our full forward comes down to, you know, through the centre line or to half-back flank. So that makes it pretty hard, you know. But this day and age now, you know, there's no forwards, there's no backmen. They're all midfielders playing in
They're
their,
all multi-purpose vehicles now, aren't they?
They are,
Really?
yeah. And then they're good runners, and even the ruck blokes, you know, even though, yeah, we had some good runners in the ruck as well. But this day and age now, they're all can run, you know, all run, you know, 13, 14 k's a game. Yeah.
All right, life after footy. Platts, obviously the safety hub's a business for you now, going pretty good. But when you were playing, did you ever think about life after footy? Was it always, you know, when we were kids, we always think we're just going to play forever. Then suddenly there's a reality check.
Yeah, look, I was probably lucky enough to. I was in pubs in Melbourne and pubs here in Adelaide, and sort of sold all that, and then got into something, you know, which is, you know, 5 days a week. It's, you know, a bit more comfortable, and Monday to Friday. So, yeah, we into the safety game now. So yeah, all clothing and hard hats and glasses. And
so mate, a bloke that plays
and
footy gets bashed from pillar to post. Suddenly promoting safety just doesn't quite match up for me. Can you work me through it?
Maybe I should have worn one of those when I was playing.
I reckon I could see in one of those. It'd be all right, wouldn't it? I mean, you see some of the collisions now. It's frightening speed when you see it.
Yeah.
Are we far away from, not the hard hat, but are we far away from footy starting to see a little bit of like gridiron type padding come into the game?
Yeah, maybe another 5 or 10 years that might be a part of it, you know, wearing the pads and the helmet and things like that. But it depends on really what happens in probably the next 5 or 10 years of blokes who've had bad collisions over, you know, the last 10 or 30 years. So that all might probably come up, and, you know, sooner or later we might be wearing hard hats and.
Do you ever have any? Do you ever have any when you were knocked out? Can't remember any of it. I mean, now if you get the concussion, and of course the AFL, the head's protected unbelievably now for you.
Yeah. Look, I did. You know, like we did a survey with the AFL probably 6 or 8 months ago.
Yep.
And I probably, you know, I played 18 years of senior football, 6 with Centrals and 12 with Hawthorn, and I would say that I would have had probably on an average 2 concussions a year.
Wow.
So that, you know, 2 a year, 18 years, so it's 36 concussions I had. So,
yep.
You know, hopefully, you know, I don't fall into the category of, you know, I've got something wrong with me in the next sort of few years as well. So, but, you know, that's footy, that's life. So you just
when you talk about they tested you, how did they? What were the tests?
Well, when I was
playing, had to put your name on a piece of paper.
They sent you a form which I filled out and I sent it back to them, just trying to remember things and where you got hit and what are you doing now and things like that. So yeah, it was about a good 20-odd page survey. So yeah, went back. You know, I think they're just following up on a few blokes who played it pretty rough and tough. So
who was the toughest?
Toughest. Liberatore, he was always pretty tough in the sense of a tagger.
Yep.
You know, Chris Bond was another bloke who, you know, tagged pretty hard. But probably the hardest player to play on, who worked very, very hard in his game, was Robert Harvey. He was a sort of bloke that probably came about 4 or 5 years after me, but I was lucky enough to play on him.
Yep.
He played on me, so he was one of my toughest opponents.
Physically, he's a pretty imposing chap.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, they talk about the footy term is you've got a big motor. You know, you had a big motor, guys that can run all day.
Yeah.
Normally for you over the course of a game, you could wear a guy down. Harvey obviously wasn't a guy you could wear down.
Oh, no.
If you talk about the rotations and interchange now, you wouldn't be able to use that skill anymore to wear a guy down, would you?
No, because now they're talking about they run probably 14 to 16 Ks a game.
Yep.
When we played, it was, you know, 25 Ks a game, you know, because you never come off, and, you know, when you have your rest, you sort of had your rest down forward, you know, and so it was the opportunity. You just got to keep running, you know, to wear a tagger down. You know, if I get tagged, and I knew probably halfway through the third quarter he was starting to fall off me a bit. So that's because we were super fit, and Robert Harvey was one of those blokes as well.
Mate, grand final week is a great week in Melbourne. It's a fantastic week. We'd all love it in South Australia. The Perth would love it over there. Sure, Brisbane. Everyone wants it. It's never going to be out of Melbourne. No. The week for you, you're still involved now. Yeah. I know they fly you back in and there's a big event and the tingles come, the memories come. Yeah. Is there, I mean, night premierships day, is there one that stands out for you when it starts happening?
It's tough. Yeah, it's hard. In the sense of, because I won 4 of them, '88 was my first one ever, with Hawthorn moving over there in '86. '88 and '89 was a back-to-back premiership. So, it was those two enormous years, and I was part of the first team to win a back-to-back with Hawthorn. So you put that one together, and then the other one was '91 when we played at Waverley, and that was the only one.
It was at Waverley?
Yeah, Waverley. So they're all got some sort of special story about them. So that's to pin one out, it's pretty hard. '89 was always tough because I got knocked out in the first quarter, and Dermot got smashed in the first 5 seconds of the game. Dipper had a punctured lung. I got concussion in the first quarter. Pritchard got 2 cork thighs. Michael Tuck got 17 stitches in his hand from a webbing cut. So but people talk about the '89 premiership. It was always a pretty rough and tough one.
You talk about Michael Tuck. Longevity was, and he wanted to go another year, but didn't
yeah.
quite get to do that. I mean, that part of the game. I mean, we see Fletcher still going now, and Bomber Harvey's still going, but they're probably the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Now, do you think we'll see it again? Do you think there'll be a player that'll get to 400 games?
Oh, look, probably with Harvey and Fletcher, I think they'll probably be the last ones. I know we always say that when we said Tui Tucky playing 400, he'll be the last one. But I don't know, the way that the game's played now, it's more intense. There's more training. But you may be lucky enough to see some bloke playing till he's 40 years old, which is going to be pretty tough. But don't know.
All right, mate, last question. I know you've got a lot of work to do here at the Sporting Hub. 1986, you joined Hawthorn. You walk into a change room that is literally littered with superstars.
Yeah.
Can you remember that first moment of walking into the change room, the first training session?
Yeah, it was a time where I just got drafted. It was my first training session at Hawthorn, and I walked down the hallway, and all on the wall there was Lee Matthews, there was John Kennedy Senior, there was David Park, and there was Peter Knight. You walk down the hallway, you see all these photos, and we're talking about hair. My hair was just sticking up.
We always get back to the hair when I'm talking to you, don't I?
So, but there's sort of the memories which you go, because you know you're in something special. And when I got there, they just played in 3 grand finals to win 1. They lost 84 and 85 to Essendon. So, it was just an awe about the club that once you walked in there, you're always going to play finals footy. And once you play finals footy, that next step was to win premierships, and I was lucky enough to be part of that.
As blokes, did they approach you, or did you have to approach them? Did they, for instance, did Lee Matthews walk up and say, "Welcome to the club, John. Glad you're here. Enjoy your time, Platts," or how did it work?
Oh, it sort of worked in a sense of when I played Teal Cup, which is the under-18 state footy going now. I played for South Australia in 1980 with Kernahan and Bradley and Motley and these types of blokes, and I was lucky enough to get picked up by Hawthorn. They saw me. I was a 17-year-old kid, and I suppose from there onwards they kept on tabs with me or what I was doing. I played league footy with Centrals. Cowboy Neal was our coach at Centrals in '84 and '85, and Alan Jeans, who was coaching Hawthorn, was good mates with Cowboy.
Yep.
So they had a bit of a relationship together, and it was always going to go to Hawthorn. So they just watched what I was doing at Centrals, and I did pretty well there. So it was pretty much time enough for me to move on to Victoria, because I sort of did what I had to do at Centrals, except win a premiership, but I wanted to play in the VFL/AFL.
All right, I said it was going to be my last question, but there's too many to ask you, mate. I've got a couple more. You talked about Alan Jeans, and as soon as his name's mentioned, everyone goes, Alan Jeans. Wow, Alan Jeans. Your first phone call from Jeansy?
Yeah, it's just, we like you to come over and play with us. We're a fairly big family club at Hawthorn, and I know you come from a fairly big family, and we think that you're the man to come in. Lee Matthews was just going to retire in end of '85, so I was coming over in '86. So it was a fairly big spot there to
fairly
fill.
Similar. I could see how they were replacing you with Lee. After you hung up from the phone, what did you say to your mum? You could have just walked over and go, that was just Alan Jeans giving us the buzz, see how things are going.
No, she was pretty excited, and but I think she was worried about me going over there.
She would be.
You're going to get smashed. There was bigger bodies and everything else. I said, Mum, I can run fast. I'm okay. So no, she was excited, and so were the rest of the family. So.
All right, State of Origin, mate. I always have this great memory going to Footy Park, watching you rip around the boundary line in goal for South Australia, and that big finger going. It was great.
Yeah.
State of Origins. I mean, they talk about it every year. Can we do it again? Can we do it again? Yeah. Is it done?
Oh, I like to think it's not. I think they've got to sort of arrange it where it's at the right time, the right date, and everything else for all the players. I think all the players want it, but I think it's more the clubs and the coaches don't want it, because they don't want to see their best players get injured in it as well. So, But I reckon there is a spot there for it, but it's got to be the right time and place for it.
All right, Johnny Platten was our special guest. Down to the safety hub. If you need any gear, they have got everything down here. Take my word for it, Johnny Platten was South Australia's greatest footballer. Back after the break.